Do, 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 do. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Indie Creative Comics Podcast, where we are all about independent comics. I'm one of your hosts, Angel, with John Pepe.
How's it going, Angel?
It's going, bro. It's Monday. I'm excited. It's another week of comics, the industry, all this stuff going on. And then all right, so we always have like a little short conversation before we start everything. And fuck, you just got me into a down mood. Why just there's more deaths, just more and more deaths. All right, before we even hop into the podcast and go down rabbit holes.
It's my turn now to break bad news to you.
Yeah, let's step back and what are we? All right, I'm gonna be all over the place. All right, so just for you guys that are hopping on and stuff like that, we have we're going live in a couple places this week, so I'm like all over the place. We're like live on YouTube, live on Instagram, and live on Facebook. So I'll be looking for like comics and stuff, like people say, "F you, bro, what the hell are you doing?" kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes. So if this is your first time to the podcast, welcome. This is the one and only truly dedicated podcast to indie, small print, small press, whatever you want to title it. That's not the main two podcasts. You got John and myself, both creators. John still works. Well, we both still. I kind of still work there.
Behind the scenes.
Day-to-day, behind the scenes.
The guy in the chair.
Yeah. So we're part of the retail business, so we understand that aspect of it. We're avid readers. We're here week in and week out reading new books each week. I think we did a really big crossover though. Like I've been reading, like I pulled back on my mainstream books so much. I've dwindled it down to just titles that I actually will read within the week so that I'm not too far off. I was piled up on like G.I. Joe's, like 10 issues out. I was piled up on The Void, like 10 issues out. I only kept with the Transformers part of the line. So I'm sticking with that. So when it mentions other shit, I'm just like, God damn it. But I'll go back and get the and then even with like the Absolute stuff, I was doing the Trinity of the three, and then all of a sudden just had to scale back to just Absolute Batman. So yeah, because it's all indie, small press, indie, small press stuff. So I'm not complaining. But every now and then there's a book that comes out. Like there was, for some weird reason, there was like 3 Punisher books on at the same time.
Yeah,
there was
so
like Punisher, the Marvel Knights one, and then the Red Band.
Yeah. So the Red Band was the 5-issue R-rated series that was written by Benjamin Percy. And then that ended,
but he started another one
within like a week of 5 coming out. The final issue of the mini, the first issue of the new ongoing written by Percy started. So, and then there was the Palmiotti, Jim Palmiotti's doing the Marvel Knights World to Come stuff, and one of those is a Punisher series, and that's as if the Marvel Knights line had continued unadulterated, uninterrupted from its conception,
right?
And so that's sort of like another old man Frank, thing, because they're kind of do that in real time. Yes. So the way it's funny because the way we rack stuff, we'll keep first and second issues up. Usually it's next issue comes, previous issue goes. We like to keep first and second issues up because if you see the second issue and you miss the first issue, boom, it's right there. You don't got to go hunting for it. But within that 4 week time frame, you had the last issue of the mini on the rack, the first issue of the ongoing on the rack, the second issue of the ongoing on the rack, and then the current issue of the Marvel Knights Punisher series.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was one of my favorite characters too.
And a facsimile reprint of #1, which was also up for that amount of time. Yeah. So, hey, look, it's good to see Frank occupied some rack space.
Yeah, but it was racking my brain because I was like, what storyline am I following now? So, yeah, so even though we focus mostly on indie books on this particular podcast, we still read our mainstream stuff. But like I said, it's dwindled down a lot. So, yeah, but we've got some book for you this week. We're really excited about, but there's some really quick announcements. I know we mentioned it last week, 2 weeks ago, But yeah,
Oh, I've
actually, you
heard
know
of
what?
this.
Let me take this off for a second
Oh,
because
all right.
let's do the sad news first to get it out of the
Oh,
way because
yes,
I
yes.
don't want to be sad for the entire podcast. So
All
go ahead
right.
with your sad news, you son of a bitch.
So I guess there's our recurring in memoriam opening segments. It's more of a celebration. It's a celebration, not a funeral, right? We came here to praise
Yes.
these people, not bury them. But yeah, so it was my turn to be the bearer of bad news because last week I woke up a couple mornings to some text from Angel telling me about Chuck Norris, and then about Sam Keith, and it was like great way, thanks, to help me start the day like that. So now it's my turn to be the bearer of bad news. Amazing character actor who just, I think in the 80s and 90s, probably most of the roles he played were principals, right? Because to the point where I think a lot of people I know, if I try to think of who my principals were, in middle school and high school over the years, I usually go to this guy first in my brain over whoever the actual principal was, because this guy was, so principal in Back to the Future. I also believe he was the principal in the live action Masters of the Universe movie. Either way,
No, he wasn't a principal.
He was a principal. He was a cop.
Yeah.
Either way, his bit in that movie is great because he gets to go and live in Eternia forever and shoot things and hook up with tall, muscle babes. And so James Tolkien, 94 years old. 94 years old, passed away the other day.
Dude, but his acting range was like
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Was the same character in every single movie that
Pretty
he played.
much.
He was just an over the top, just angry guy.
Same suit.
Everybody.
Same suit.
A shotgun or some kind of gun.
Yep. Same suit, same shaved head, but yeah, definitely the guy, one of those guys where you see him and you do that Leonardo DiCaprio meme. You're like, I know that guy. Yeah. I know that guy.
He would have been the perfect Kojak.
He would have for
those of you that are born after 2000. Yeah, it was a show back in the was that 80s? That was the 80s, right?
It was the 70s. That was a 70s show.
Okay.
Famously,
bald guy.
Telly Savalas.
Yes. Looked like Mr. Clean.
Worst, probably second or third worst Blofeld, in my opinion, in the entire James Bond franchise. But that, because he's so iconic as Kojak. And, Kojak was huge. His trademark, besides the bald head, was the lollipop, right?
Right.
He would always have a lollipop.
Yep.
So huge that when Mario Puzo, real quick, wrote the script for the first Superman movie, he included a point where Superman is flying through Metropolis looking for Lex Luthor, grabs this bald-headed guy from behind, turns him around, and it's a cameo written for Telly Savalas. And he's like, "Hey, Superman, who loves you, baby? I'm third worst Blofeld," Oh God, no! That would have been awesome. That would have been awesome.
He should have been in every Superman movie. He would have been like Stan Lee.
You know what? He would have been I think a really good Lex Luthor, but I think part of it was he was so identified as Kojak.
Yeah. People would have not been able to disassociate him with that. They wouldn't have taken him seriously. All right, cool. Yeah, so that's in memoriam. Now to the happy news, I guess. So we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. We're really excited. I know that some people aren't excited because it's so much work that they have to do for this particular day. But Free Comic Book Day, I didn't put the other image because it's not a real freaking thing, but I think it's the free giveaway book something day. So basically you have Free Comic Book Day, which started in 2002, I believe. So we're going on 24 years. Is going to be the 24th year of Free Comic Book Day. I think it was I don't think it was started, but I think it was mentioned by a retailer, something Joe Field or whatever it was.
Yeah.
In an article somewhere. And I think and this was in 2001 that I believe. And then in 2002, after I guess it was kind of pitched around or it was picked up and stuff like that, then it became a thing. Because I was reading on something and it was really weird because I never realized that Free Comic Book Day was associated with a superhero movie release each year. Except for I think like 1 or 2 years. So it started in 2002, and from what I understand, Jim Valentino of Image Comics recommended it come on in the same weekend that Spider-Man was
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah.
Just to kind of have that reference of comic book movie, free comics, go to the comic book shop kind of thing. And it's stuck. And then I think every year after that, they had some kind of superhero movie coming out. Oh, we got Earth saying hi, but I think he left already, so we'll just say hi, Earth. Yeah, so since then, I think only 1 year, 1 or 2 years have passed where we didn't have a super movie, and I think it's more recent than anything else. So I think last one was Thunderbolts, which would have been associated. It came out at the same time around Free Comic Book Day. It's always the first Saturday in May, every single year. And it's a huge deal. Not only because it drives traffic into the comic shops. I wish it would be traffic that stood, but it does bring a significant amount of people into the comic book shops. It's almost like a sort of like a mini convention because you'll have people that dress up. I know at the Joker Show, which this poster is for, we have was he there last year? Batman? I think last year he skipped. He couldn't make it
last year. There was a problem. There's and
but he's been there pretty much every year for
he's back this year.
Which is awesome. So he on Instagram he goes by Batkez, I believe is Bat and then Quez. I think he's got an Emmy Award or he's in an Emmy Award winning film.
He
documentary, right?
Documentary made about him because he goes to children's hospitals and as Batman, and the guy's got a costume for every iteration of Batman except for like the Adam West, but everything else he's got it covered, right? And he there was a documentary made on him, and it did win an Emmy, and apparently I guess the clips on YouTube, he accepted the Emmy in a tuxedo with a bat cowl. Yeah, very cool.
Which is fantastic. So yeah, he's like detailed down. So when we had Ben Affleck's Batman, he had that suit on. It just looked amazing. He had Michael Keaton's Batman suit. Looked amazing. So he'll be there, and he's awesome because he'll go up and down the line. It's outside. So if you've never been to the Joker Show or any one of these comic shops that have it, usually they'll only allow a certain amount of people into the building. And so there's a line that wraps around the entire building, and it doesn't take long because most people are just they're going through really quickly. They may purchase something, they may not, but for the most part, if they're just browsing around, they circle around, they get their free comic books, and then they're out. So they spend maybe about 10, 15 minutes on average, and then most people that are online are waiting just about that as well.
Yeah, it's very efficiently run. No one is waiting on that line for too long. And if you are, you got Batman to entertain you and other folks. I think one year there was a couple folks showed up. One was the Flash and one was the Riddler, and Flash is just chasing the Riddler around the line of the building, and so it's a good time.
No, and it's cool, and it's funny because it's like comic books as well. There's no set standard, so each comic shop does it differently. I know where we're at, we sort of have like a menu of things that people can choose from, because there's some people that won't want to read certain books. So like the kids' books are separated from like maybe the older books and stuff like that. And then there's some shops that you go to and the books are just like spread on a table, and it's just, it's a smorgasbord of free books. But if this is going to be your first time and you're looking forward to going to a Free Comic Book Day, first Saturday, which is I think May 2nd this year, do not go to the wall and just start picking off books, because that's not how it works. There's specific books for that day, and you'll see the title on them as well. It'll say Free Comic Book Day on it, and then I can't remember where do you remember what the other one's going to be called?
Comic Giveaway Day.
Oh fuck, so stupid. So dumb. All right, so when this initially started, Diamond Comics distributor was around. They were the only game in town. So everything was done through Diamond, and Free Comic Book Day came to be. 22 years later, Diamond no longer exists. And then we get the breakup of, the bigger companies, Marvel, DC. They move away into their own distribution companies. And now we have them being distributed by different companies. And then all the other distributors fell within those distribution channels as well. So I think last year was the first year that we had free comic book day and free comic giveaway day going on at the same time. So free comic giveaway days associated with PRH, which is Penguin, and then the free comic book day, which is owned by Universal because they bought out Diamond Comics, but have allowed Lunar Distribution to carry free comic book day here in the U.S.
To license the name, so to speak.
License the name, yeah. So you have a bunch of books that are going to be under Lunar, and then the rest of other books that come for the free comic giveaway day are going to come through PRH. Yeah. So I believe Lunar, or the free comic book day, I think there's about 24 titles that are going to be available, and then something of the equivalent for PRH. So there's a decent amount of books. Don't go. Sometimes there's new stuff, but for the most part, it's either previews of things that are coming up, or they're reprints of stuff that have just come out recently and stuff like that. Either way, they're free. Yeah. Just a little bit of the business aspect of it, so you get a peek behind the curtains. They're not free for the retailers. So the retailers, they don't get the books for free. They actually have to pay for the books. They get them at a significant discount. This is why they're able to give them away. But yes, they do pay for the books that come in. And then you guys get them for free. Sometimes they have some really cool stuff. Every year, I think last year was the beginning of the Energon verse. So they had that Energon verse 0.
That would have been
no, that was 2 years ago.
2, 3, yeah.
Yes, 2 years ago. So so sometimes there's some cool stuff that comes out because it's previews of what's going to be coming out for the rest of the year, or what may be coming out really soon. So what we invite you guys to do is to contact your local comic book shops. Just make sure that they're going to be participating. There's about, last time we checked, just about 2,000 or so stores across the nation. So this is a nationwide deal that you can walk into pretty much any comic book store on May 2nd and say, hey, I like some free comics, and see what they got for you and stuff like that. You can also go to freecomicbookday.com, and you can see what comics are going to be available through Free Comic Book. I don't know if you go to PRH.
If they have an equivalent, but
if they have an equivalent.
They probably do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, like you said, you really can't underestimate the importance and just the bigness of this event for shops. It is sort of a way to, not only try and gain new customers or introduce people to comics, because again, not by design, but by circumstance, it has become tied into a major movie release, usually a Marvel or Sony Spider-Man related thing. Like I think 1 year there might have been nothing attached. I think that either had to do with the writer actor strike or COVID. Like there was only, I think, 1 year since 2002 where nothing was attached. Yes. And it's a great way to also thank the faithful, to thank the regular customers with some good free stuff that are, again, they use it to kind of preview big events or new titles or get a nice little thing. And again, people love it. It's, even if they already have that reprinted elsewhere, they love the idea of it. They love the collectability of it. They love the event. And I think it's great, and it's a good time. And with Diamond barely squeaked it out last year before everything kind of happened. And there was a question whether it was going to happen last year, and it did. And there was a question what was going to happen this year. And so I'm really glad that not only one, but two distributors stepped up to decide to do something. And hopefully next year, to sort of avoid confusion and sort of, branding, that both all distributors involved will be able to just call it Free Comic Book Day. That's my
Well, I'm glad that they left it as the same day. Like the other distributor decided not to do it the following Saturday or something. That would have just drove retailers to just shut down their stores and quit. But I think what's really important for this one particular day out of an entire 52 weeks is that I think it's a really good time, especially for people that are already in that comic book medium, that love comic books, to invite people that don't read comic books. And maybe not people your age, maybe younger. We need that younger audience to come in and fall in love with what we fell in love with back in the 80s, 90s, wherever you started your first run of comics. Because I think what's really missing And what was really crazy, because I was listening to another podcast, and a lot of times it has to do with the numbers of books that are being sold and stuff like that. And manga's been like up there for so long, especially here in the US still too. Manga's like up there. They're just, they're digestible and they're expendable. You just read them and then they go. We're the only ones that collect manga, which is insane. In Japan, they just read them and throw them out in the trash.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the first year where manga kind of slipped down just a little bit. And I'm just wondering if the audience is outgrowing, if we're not catching the next generation of people to come in and carry that torch. Because if you don't have the demand, then why supply?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my only concern. So I think this year, if you're coming back for your 24th or your 10th or your 5th free comic book day, if family and have kids, bring them along, because there will be kids books as well. And if we can get them, inspired and intrigued about picking up a book rather than just a tablet all the time, it doesn't have to be one or the other. They can coexist together. But I think if you don't introduce it to them, they don't know it exists, kind of thing. I can't even remember the last time I saw an actual kid in a comic book shop, kind of thing. So I think if we get that next generation really excited about what we're excited about, or at least give them some exposure to it, then let them decide of whether or not they want to proceed and stuff like that. I wish, like, the comic book movies would still give out comics. Because I know when I went to go see Black Panther, they were giving out Black Panther comic books and stuff like that. I just think the more that we can just get it out there as a way to get them into the stores would be fantastic. I just think that we've come so far along that sometimes I think the price point is a concern. So we can get them in the store, but gosh, some of these books, $8.99, $9.99. I was like, holy shit! I'm an adult, and I'm like, God damn it, trying to budget myself. But with that being said, it's a really exciting time. So if you're if you're in Fair Lawn, if you're close to us, come on by. I mean, as many people as possible. If you're not, just call your local comic book shop, make sure they're participating, and then find out what time they're going to start and how it's going to work. And that way it just makes it easier for you as well. If they allow you to dress up. It's fun. We've seen some people coming in, which is fantastic. So really cool stuff. I'm hoping it continues. It's one of these things where I think it's really key to the industry itself. We just need more of it. And we're not. All right. So that is all that we have, except for we do have we have more creators coming on board. So if you haven't had a chance, our Indie Creator Spotlight has been just going off since the beginning of the year. We've had, I think, about 4 or 5 guests, maybe more, I think.
Pretty much every week. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. So you can go into the backlog and see some people that we've had on there. Really cool people, really cool creators, sharing their work and their passion for their projects. So definitely go back to the backlog. We have another one coming up. I think Johnny Busa is coming up, and he has a Kickstarter going on right now. And I'm only mentioning it because I think it ends today. And when we record him, it probably won't come out till Wednesday. So if you're on Kickstarter, if you want to check out, it's called The Matriarch. Johnny Busa is his name. We already had a sneak peek at it. We thought it was great. So you might want to hop on to Kickstarter if you want. Look up The Matriarch and see if it's to your delight. I believe it ends today. And then with that said, I think we have one more piece of news.
Say it's a good stuff, The Matriarch. It looks really nice. Very, very hard sci-fi, but really neat stuff. Really dug what he had to show us. So
so definitely check it out. It'll be cool. And then last announcement before we move ahead into our reviews is Pam. Project Shadow Breed number 2 is fully funded. So I think we have a 1 day left. It ends on the 31st, so it ends tomorrow, I believe. So thank you to everybody who has backed this project. Justin Bartz, who's the creator, co-founder of Indie Creator Comics, just poured his heart into this book. We have unlimited discussions of where the direction of this book is going to be going. I think we're already up to issue 6 that we're talking about. And Alex Moser, who's the artist, is almost done with issue number 3, which is really cool. So I'm just putting the finishing touches on issue number 2, but it's fully funded. So once the funds get into the bank, that book is going out to print, and people will have this stuff within a short matter of time, which is awesome. So, yeah, thank you guys for that. ProjectShadowbreed.com if you want to hop on before tomorrow and show some love and support. All right, so that's going to bring us to our comic reviews. I think we have 3 books for you this week. You have 2 and I have 1. So why don't you start us off?
All right. I am actually going to start off with something I've been wanting to talk about for a while concerning a specific creator. And I was able to actually get my hands on a new number 1. This is from Mark Spears. It is Mark Spears' Midnight Man. I opted for the variant cover because it's the kids wearing the Who Shot JR shirt, right? I was like, oh, that's funny. Really cute. That's fun. I think a lot of people know what that means without knowing what it means at this point, but it's a really, I think people understand it was a big television event. I just don't know if anybody really, remembers Dallas, so to speak, right? Yes. So it's really interesting. But
I've never seen an episode of that in my entire life. Not one, not a piece of the episode. Sure. Maybe like on YouTube or something. Like
why
or something.
Why
but
would
that's the only reference that I know.
That's all people know.
It broke the internet before there was an internet.
Before there was an internet, yes.
Which is insane.
And I think what's really funny is the Who Shot JR? It was ubiquitous. It was an early meme, right? Before memes and the internet, like you said. So I think what really kind of carried that awareness, at least of what that is, not where it's from, is The Simpsons, the Who Shot Mr. Burns.
Right.
So a lot more people, I think, know of the Who Shot Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, even though I'm sure there's people who have no idea what that is too, or at least what that episode is. But people, I think, who know that know, this is emulating a popular event from television in the 80s. But yes, Dallas was a primetime soap opera about oil, Texas, Dallas.
Wait. But because I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I got to get this out of my brain. Because if I'm not mistaken, the end of that whole sequence was a dream, was it not?
That was not Who Shot JR. So Who Shot JR was actually a season-ending cliffhanger. And so that over the summer, it was Who Shot JR, so that the season premiere, which would reveal that, was a huge ratings event, right?
Right.
Later on, there's an actor, Patrick Duffy, who I think you might remember from Step by Step?
Yes.
Right.
He was in the shower.
So his character, Bobby Ewing, who was JR's brother, was killed mid-season, I think, or at the beginning of a season. He wanted out, and so they did the whole rest of the season with him being dead.
Right.
And then I think either the end of that season or it had another season if that was a cliffhanger. But basically the ratings dive bombed because he was gone. He wanted to come back because I think whatever he was doing didn't work out. So they brought him back. And famously the season ender was he walks out of the shower as if he'd never been dead. And then the season premiere that following fall was the explanation that character had dreamed an entire season's worth of Dallas.
So that means JR didn't die either.
This is well after the Who Shot JR.
Okay. JR confusing it too. So people were upset about the cliffhanger, number one. They were fucking losing their fucking minds.
They were just in anticipation.
Yes, but then they were losing their fucking minds because this guy comes back and everything that had happened the season before was a dream.
Think about you're a Dallas devotee, and then you suffer through this season, and then they're like, oh yeah, that never happened, and you're like, oh okay, great, because I hated the season, but why did you do, sort of like they did something with Roseanne, where I think when they brought the show back, they basically said the last couple seasons of that original was a dream. Again, that's such a weird comic book thing to do in television, but yet people accept it now in comics, like it's
yes. It doesn't work in live television.
It's weird because I think there's something invested to these people, to these shows that people have. But yeah, no. And the other thing with Who Shot JR didn't die. JR lived. So, so he could, basically get his JR type, Stetson hat wearing revenge on, I think it was his ex-wife in the show who shot him. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Anyway,
I'm all caught up. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. No worries.
Back on topic.
Yeah. Mark Spears, Neon Alex Ross, as some folks call him. He has a very interesting style. You've definitely seen him, so yeah, he kind of almost came out of nowhere in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
He has been doing this stuff for this series for Keen Spot called Mark Spears Monsters. And that is basically, from what I gather, because again, it's very hard because this guy was selling out every issue, right? He's using classic monster tropes in his unique style. Now, his unique style, it's interesting because he has, in the last couple of years where he's gotten this fame through the Monster series, he has also, been able to do painted covers for some of the big two. Mm-hmm. And some of those, as well as I think Dynamite, he did a bunch of Thundercats covers and Silverhawks covers. And a lot of those covers, they do look hand painted, mm-hmm. but most of them are this very interesting digital looking style. And I know he's gotten a lot of guff for this, and I've kind of been like, what is this guy doing? It doesn't, when I've flipped through some of the stuff that I've been able to flip through, the sequential is very off to me. Everything looks a little dead-eyed, right? Mm-hmm. What he does is he does draw, and he has a program where he scans the drawing in and it builds a 3D rendering. And that's how he lays out his page. He moves the 3D renderings of the characters in and changes the camera angles in the background. We interviewed somebody a couple years ago that was doing something very similar with his comic book as far as creating. He had built the whole world as a 3D maps.
Yes. I remember.
So this is kind of what Mark Spears, he's got YouTube. Mark Spears has YouTube videos about his process. So this is not AI generated. It is not complete CGI art. There is human hand behind this work. So great. Much respect to Mark Spears and what he's doing. And I love that he's playing with these, archetypes of these monsters and everything like that. And I really want to read the Mark Spears monster stuff. And now I kind of have to, because I was like, all right, I was able to get my hands on a number one. So not only does he have his monster series, he has a 3-issue Monster versus Wolf miniseries, and now this. And I was like, great. And it looks like from the surface, it's his take on superhero tropes. And I was like, great, easy entry. Go right in and enjoy this without having read the other stuff.
I hear a butt coming on.
Oh boy, was I wrong, because this is fully entrenched in the Mark Spears Monsters universe. Fully referencing things that happen in the series. So unfortunately, I have to say, not a great introductory issue, but something that now I'm like, okay, now I really do want to see what was going on in this, just so I can kind of get some more background context on this, because it's again, his style, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And I'm just going to give you this sort of like midpoint thing here, where these are two sort of androids that get consciousness put into them, I believe is what is happening in this story. Now, here's the other thing too, is because there are some, okay, so the first scene is great. The first scene takes place in a comic shop, and it's the kid that we see on the cover who's reading a comic, and one of the guys in the shop right there, Mark Spears, sucks. And this guy goes on a rant about Mark Spears. And remember, this is written by Mark Spears. So one of the things, it's the art is too stiff, the monster's unoriginal, and don't even get me started on the dialogue. Spears is overrated. And then it's got like one of those little asterisks to bring you to the little corner caption box where the response to the asterisks is maybe a little from Mark Spears himself. So I love the opening sequence because it was full of like, just the artist basically saying, yeah, I'm aware of what you think I'm doing and how you feel about I am. But that's not going to stop me. I'm still going to do it. I'm going to have a good time doing it. I'm going to poke fun at myself for what you say it is that I do. And so much props, much respect to him for that. There's even like another like caption where he's like, yeah, don't worry. This guy saying all this bad stuff about me, he's going to die violently later in the series. So there's this good, interesting, self-referential, self-deprecating awareness that this is not everybody's cup of tea. Okay. And you're like, okay, so this is about this kid reading a Mark Spears comic, and then boom, next scene, it's saying the night before, same kid in an issue of Mark Spears Monsters, number 6 to be exact, this kid dies. And so now this story is fully in the Monsters universe of Mark Spears, where this kid's consciousness gets put into one of these androids. And because this kid loves this character, Midnight Man, created by Mark Spears in the comics, he decides to become Midnight Man in that android body that you see on the cover there.
Gotcha.
So it is not a good introductory comic. I will say that. But again, having read it, I'm intrigued and I really want to kind of be able to dive into this Mark Spears universe. And while the issues were selling out of Monsters, and even the subsequent printings were selling out, and then once we were able to get a few to stick around in the store, these things are going for big money now. This guy is hotcakes. Everybody loves, everyone's getting in on the game for Mark Spears. And again, I see the appeal, but I don't quite see the rabidness of it. And it raises my hackles as far as what we've been talking about, about some of this weird speculation stuff going on, that people are just made him a thing. Mark Spears, get his stuff, low print run, and making it shoot through the roof. And that the people that are doing this aren't reading the content.
Yeah.
And I think what he's done here is he has made a number 1 issue for the Mark Spears faithful. So that's where I'm like, okay, good on you, right? That it's like you want to know, that people are paying attention to what you're doing, because the man is doing work and he is definitely doing artistic work and is having fun doing it. And I think that should be recognized and that should be appreciated. So again, I think the first 4 issues of Mark Spears Monsters are coming out in trade paperback. I suggest picking that up if you're interested in getting in on the ground floor. Monster and Wolf, while it's a 3-issue miniseries, I don't think is a standalone thing. I think it is also within that milieu of now the 3 titles that he has right now. Right. So yeah, great package, great paper. Keenspot always does a really good job with their presentations. This is, I think, the only one they've been doing in color. I think most of the Keenspot stuff that I can remember. I think maybe you had something recently.
Yeah, it was black and white. It was that Japanese inspired comic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Maid Cafe. Hey, guess who did the cover for Maid Cafe?
Spears.
Mark Spears. So, but I really want one thing I really want to point out that I really appreciated seeing in the Keenspot news box on the back, inside back cover is, so it's, it's their high page, right? Everybody's got it, right? Right at the bottom, it says, item, are you a creator looking for a publishing home? Feel free to submit to Keenspot. We'll be happy to take a look and we'll be in touch if your work seems like a good fit. Our submission guidelines can be found here, keenspot.com / submissions. I thought that was really cool for a publisher to do that. For a publisher to say, hey, we know you guys are out there making your own comics. We know you're doing the crowdfunding thing. We're willing to look at anything.
Nice.
So send us what you want, what you got. And I think that's very cool.
That is cool. Okay. Yeah. All right. So not a good jumping start on point, but definitely for the Mark Spears fan. Now, was it referencing so much of the other stuff that you couldn't follow this story?
It was difficult. I mean, it's a basic boy gets dead. and his brain is put into a robot, and the boy now wants to be a superhero.
Gotcha.
The surrounding reasons for why this brain needs to go in a robot, again, I think that's you kind of have your Igor and your Dr. Frankenstein, but that Dr. Frank is a robot, so there's a whole lot going on there that I think really, yes, the enjoyment of this is for somebody who's been with Mark Spears Monsters from day one, and has been reading it and not flipping it.
Gotcha. All right, guys. Mark Spears, Midnight Man from Key Spot. Check it out if you dare. All right, moving on to me. So I'm going to make this one really quick because I always read the synopsis for these books, and often the synopsis does not match what I read. But however, this time the synopsis is spot on. But before I read that, I've got Honor and Curse from Mad Cave. It's been a while since I've read a Mad Cave book, so I was looking forward to this. So what do we got? So this is creator and writer Mark London. The artist is Jamie Infante. The colorist is Fran Gamboa, and letters by Carlos Mangual. All right, cool. So I'm going to read the synopsis, and we'll go from there. So about this comic, and this is from MadCaveStudios.com. So an immortal ninja cursed with a vengeful war spirit is forced out of hiding to protect the last descendants of his sworn family, even if it means unleashing the monster within. 600 years ago, shinobi warrior Genshi Sakagura was cursed to share his soul with the mythic spirit of war, the Tengu. Now immortal, he hides in modern-day New York, living in silence and penance, praying the curse stays buried. But when an ancient cult threatens the descendants of the family he swore to protect, Genshi must take up the blades again. To save them, he risks unleashing the monster inside and becoming the very weapon the world fears most. There is nothing else to say. That is 100% spot on. You get sort of like you open up in this ancient Japan 600 years ago, and then you get sort of like this mini story leading up to how Genshi got sucked in by the spirit, and then it fast forwards 600 years, and he's 600 years have passed. So I'm assuming he's amassed a large amount of wealth, so he doesn't have to, want for anything, but he secluded himself from the outside world. So has his earpiece in his ear. Let me see if I can find the name real quick. Yes, there it goes. Kakai. Kakai, I guess, is the servant or the person that works for him or his admin or whatever. Whenever he says Kakai, the earpiece goes off, and Kakai just says listening, and then he'll do his demands and stuff like that. So there's a couple of things that are going on in the scenario where he's talking back and forth with Kakai, like moving funds around, because there was one of his shrines was burned down. There was an attack on one of his buildings, and a whole bunch of people were killed and stuff like that. And so he wanted to make sure that the families were taken care of, that they didn't have to pay for any medical bills, and that the families that were left alive, if they had family that died that worked for them, that they were going to be taken care of and stuff like that for the rest of their life. So this boy has money. So there's a couple of things going on. And at the same time, there's the spirit of Tengu, who he has managed, because the spirit, from what I understand, will take over you and use you like a puppet and make you do things that you don't want to do. It doesn't say why it cursed him or how he got cursed. So I'm wondering if that's going to come out through the story. I think there's a little backstory that I was missing there. But you can see in the middle of the story where he secluded himself in New York, in present day New York, he like meditates, and then he goes into his mind. And in his mind, he has the Tengu spirit locked up in the cage so that it can't do anything. So this is his way of controlling that spirit, so he doesn't become sort of like this demon who kind of blacks out and just starts doing things that he shouldn't be doing. And so we get that antagonist and protagonist aspect of it. But then now you have this outside group that is doing stuff to his foundations, his buildings, and now people that he's supposed to be protecting, descendants of people from 600 years ago that are now being attacked as well. And so you see sort of like him almost giving in to the spirit coming out at the very end. So it was really cool. Is the struggle of, can I keep this demon aside or at bay so that I don't become the thing that I don't want to become, that wreaks havoc on the world and stuff like that. And then if I do that, will I be able to lock him back in the cage, kind of thing. So there's this really good struggle of man, nature, and demon, and all this stuff. So it was really interesting. I found it to be really interesting, and the synopsis is spot on. And you get sort of like the first act, second act, third act in this book, and then we have that cliffhanger of him allowing the demon to come out, and I guess he's going to go and try to protect his descendants. So we'll see what kind of struggle there is going to be after that, as to whether or not he can cage the demon again, or if he's going to do something that he's going to regret, kind of thing. So, yeah, pretty cool. I mean, Mad Cave is got some great stuff. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Kill All Immortals is a Mad Cave book, which I'm still reading. But yeah, check it out, Mad Cave, Honor and Curse. Especially if you like that whole like Japanese shinobi ninja kind of thing, it's right up your alley there.
Now, am I incorrect in thinking that there have been previous Honor and Curse series?
I know what I tried looking it up.
Yeah, that logo looks familiar, and the fact that it's Honor and Curse Eternal makes me think that this is a new series. But I think there might have at least been one previous series, which comes to my question is how accessible, if that's the case. Very accessible as a first issue?
Yeah, because it didn't mention anything of previous stuff going on. So I'm assuming if there is a previous, and I'm going to look it up real quick while you do yours, then I don't know if they're separate.
Right.
Separate series and stuff like that.
Yeah, just I don't know. The aesthetic of that title, that font, that logo looks like I've seen this before, as not in a derivative type thing, but that this is another series in a saga. A saga.
Yeah. A saga. Yeah, there is an Honor and Curse, still by Mark London as well.
Yeah. All right.
But I want to see if it's the same demon. This takes place in feudal Japan and follows Genshi Sakagura, adopted by the Egan clan after witnessing a murder of his parents, promising young shinobi. Genshi marries blah, 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 daughter Kim, led Egan clan battle. Future looked promising until a training session turned violent and Genshi almost killed his master. Yeah, so there's a previous series to this.
So I think the previous series is the origin and takes place in feudal Japan, and now this is the immortal, eternal modern day, right? So, because he now lives to the modern day.
Yeah, probably.
Interesting. Samurai Highlander. Interesting.
Yes, exactly what it is. So it looks like it was 6 issues. No, it went on 9. Volume 1. Yeah, 9 issues and stuff like that. And then there's another one. Yeah, there's a couple. So there's volume 1 torn and volume 2. God damn it, I'm gonna have to go back.
But see, now again, that's great because it's a first issue of a new miniseries that's part of another larger work that made sense to you and that you had no idea. That's no offense, Mark Spears, but that's how you do it.
But there was no reference to previous stuff, which is good.
Which is good because, you know what? And I think to Mark Spears' credit, because, he does the little asterisks and tells you what issue this happened in. It's, again, Mark Spears is playing on old style comic format and classic tropes.
But I think that only really works, honestly, for long form comics. So if you're going 30 issues, 50 issues, 60 issues, but if you're going to do a mini of a comic and reference a completely different series, then that sucks. Especially if you can't use it. Like this is fine because it didn't reference that there was a past on this, but there is an origin.
Right.
So if I want to get more detailed information, then that would probably be my only gripe, right? If I don't get that information at the end of the series, then I'm going to be like, why wasn't there any history? And there is in the previous volumes and stuff like that. So
there's pros and cons on that approach because yes, like I said, it's this Midnight Man is it feels like it's a reward for people who have been reading the series from the beginning, and it lets you know. Again, not right from the gate, but early enough into the story that this is just a part of a bigger thing and that you're really not going to because it's referencing other issues like
Right.
that, whereas the structure of doing the standalone miniseries, I think has a different benefit of its own, that you allow that discovery of the new one. You're right. Oh wow, this is great. Honor Curse Eternal. This is great. And then you have that extra discovery of, oh, there's more that takes me before. Oh, cool. So interesting.
Well, check it out, guys. Honor
Yeah.
Curse. From Mad Cave Comics. Okay, one more. Off you
Yes.
go.
So speaking of somebody else who has been doing this for 40 years at least, and knows that not every comic is going to be picked up by somebody who has been reading your stuff from the beginning. So each comic should sort of be stand on its own and have fun with it. And if you like it enough, you can explore the greater continuity, the greater world. So what we have is Butch, a Hate comic by Peter Badge. So Peter Badge, again, Hate is his big mega opus, we'll say. Indie comics darling. Did get to play about 20 or so years ago with Marvel, with the really weird and subversive Incorrigible Hulk and Megalomaniacal Spider-Man. Two very interesting one-shots about top IP characters told by a really wacky, indie creator. And most of the output for Peter Badge has been in black and white. He actually did come back to Hate after a few years with the Hate Revisited miniseries, which actually was in color with some flashback sequences in black and white. So you kind of got the best of both worlds there. But Hate follows Buddy Bradley and the people in his circle, and that includes his family, and that includes his ne'er-do-well, hyper aggressive brother Butch. So Butch, I think the best way you could describe Butch is was it Chet, the older brother from Weird Science?
Yep.
That's pretty much Butch, right down to like the haircut and everything. So yeah, I mean, look, there's let's see if you can, there's Butch right there.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So this is a very topical, very timely as far as the themes that it explores and the journey that Butch takes. Basically, again, even though things are referenced it picks up from things that happened in the previous Hate miniseries, you don't have to know that going in, because it just gives you all you need to know, because all of it is done in sort of like a newspaper strip style, so to speak. So it's it's a bunch of little vignettes, and it's just it is sort of giving you like oh yeah, so basically you do actually get a previously page, like a little recap that does say look, Butch got in trouble because he was firing his gun off in the woods because he thought this guy was trespassing while he was watching over his nephew's stuff, where his nephew's building a house up in rural Washington. And now this person wants to sue, and there's a whole thing about it possibly being a hate crime. And so Butch, who is just not very well educated and is just sort of a blunt instrument, kind of gets taken advantage of by this podcaster who's on a specific side of a political spectrum, and they kind of put Butch up there as this sort of everyman darling for their cause, and they invite him to a big convention where he thinks he's the the headliner. And it's just sort of all these weird misadventures that Butch has in a segment of society that doesn't care about him. They just care about what he represents. They're going to just sort of wring him dry of that, and then let him, hang him out to dry for whatever consequences may come from that. And then once, of course, this case against Butch winds up being dropped, nobody wants anything to do with him. And so now Butch is stuck with all these, legal bills to pay, and has to now navigate his way into finding a job. And again, it does a good way of poking fun at both sides of political ideology
Mm,
and political correctness. And so the way that Butch winds up getting a job is very funny and subversive and interesting. And I don't want to give away too much about it because I think that's sort of the fun with Peter Badge's approach.
right.
Just sort of know that like you're watching like a sitcom where you have a very or you're reading a comic that's like a sitcom where you have a very acerbic and sarcastic and subversive main character, and that would be Buddy Bradley.
Mm,
And this is focused mainly on his even more, other side of the spectrum, flip of the coin, but still very much, it's my world and I don't know what the hell's going on with all you people in my world right now attitude,
mm,
and that would be his brother Butch. It was really fun. It was refreshing. It's political satire to a degree, but it's more political social media
right.
satire, which I think hit in the right places because it's not choosing sides. It's
Yeah.
it's basically
It's just
looking at
giving both sides.
the ridiculousness on both ends.
Mm,
I would say that it does sort of, put a little bit of a stamp as far as one side is definitely using people to gain exposure and money for themselves,
mm,
and they don't care about the people they use. Whereas the other is a little bit more about empathy and feelings and things like that, which again, if you're too much on either end,
right. It
you're
doesn't
going to
work.
be ineffectual, ineffective, or you're going to just get people upset. So I think the lesson is, don't be like anybody in the comic book, but laugh at them and enjoy the ride. And, Peter Badge has a very distinct squiggly art style that's
Mhm.
really fun and cartoony, and nothing is really serious, and it all is all played for laughs. And Butch is a very endearing dimwit that is always sort of, again, like what he thinks he should be is certainly, I think, at odds with what he truly is. And to see him sort of navigate that and recognize that
Right.
and kind of just be like, whatever, I'm happy being me. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Is this a one shot?
This is specifically a one shot.
Gotcha.
I don't know if there's going to be any more hate miniseries down the road. I didn't know this was coming out because I don't really pay that much attention, but it's just, I think it's always a nice surprise when one of these, guys who really was the face of indie comics in the slacker grunge era of
Mm,
the early to mid 90s. I mean, this guy was kind of the thing in this specific, non-superhero slice of life. Yeah, we're 20 something slackers trying to make our way through a world we don't understand. And it's nice to, to have him pop up again all these years later and be like, yeah, we're 50 something slackers now with kids. We're trying to navigate a world we just don't understand.
That's funny. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. We got 3 books this week that we picked up. Butcher Hate Comic Fantagraphics. You got Honor and Curse from Mad Cave, and you got Mark Spears' Midnight Man from Keen Spot. Yeah. So really quickly before we go, because I just need to mention, because we spoke, I think, a couple weeks ago in regards to like the hype of these books coming out and then being like $45, like when they first come out in the week. And was it worth the hype? So for me, all right, Diorc, which is a great fucking title because it's dwarf and orc together. Was it worth the hype? Yes. Brett Bean got something on there that's just fucking magical, man. I mean, from the art to the actual story, I'm hooked on still from, if you got a chicken that's got his head cut off walking around and his ghost is following you, it's fucking great. So he's got something really cool going on with Diorc going on there. So if you haven't checked it out yet, you can get yourself get your hands on a copy, even if it's a reprint or whatever it is. Diorc from Image Comics, worth the hype. It was another book that I was reading. Second issue came out. I was contemplating on whether or not it was going to follow through. Ripcord Is that Ignition Press?
That is Ignition, yeah.
Ignition. All right. So we've read a lot from them lately and stuff like that. And I got the first issue. What I really appreciated from the first issue was the lack of text in that book. It really used images to tell the story and text just to, apply the things that we could not infer ourselves or where it wanted the story to kind of go. So I really appreciated the matte colors in that book, which is great. The girl that's the lead character is she's written really well. And so I picked up issue 2. Fuck, man, just as good. So it pushed the story along enough. It gave me enough violence, and it gave me enough skepticism of certain characters to be like, is this motherfucker really real, or is he, got a hidden agenda? And then you get some more of like the bad guys, but you get more of a. So if you don't remember what Ripcord is about, it's about this girl who is looking for her sister out in somewhere in the desert, kind of
the Australian outback.
Australian outback. Yeah. And there's a drug called Ripcord. That's why it's called Ripcord. And there's a whole gang based around it that controls this area. And you get a little bit more backstory on that. But she's looking for a sister who we didn't see in the first issue except for flashbacks. And here we get to see her sister and what kind of scenario she's in. So really, really cool stuff. Definitely worth picking up if you like sort of like that kind of book. And then the last one, the other one that had hype around it was White Sky. Whether or not that was worth it, fuck. Did you read the second issue?
I didn't even read the first issue.
Dude, yeah. So move the story along really great, and just it's almost like it's Walking Dead and fucking The Last of Us kind of like meshed together with like these weird freaking. There's different types of ghosts that have different abilities and stuff like that, but it's crazy because it's like, and I know we mentioned this in the past, and it's one of these things where I'm like, when it comes to the end of the world type scenarios, people are just gonna fuck each other over just to survive, and it's so sad. You already have the White Sky, which hasn't been explained because it just came out of nowhere, so it's always white. But then you have these demon creatures that are walking the earth as well, just consuming everything and anything that fucking moves. But then you're going to have other people that are just killing other people to hoard their shit. So there's so many different things to worry about as a human being that, like, why would you even want to help anybody kind of thing? It's just, I don't know. I would like to think that if we got into a zombie apocalypse, that as a species, we'd want to preserve as many as we could, that you would help as many as you could. But I think when resources dwindle down to almost nil, then that's when the other shit starts to come. It's really hard for me to jump that line to want to kill other people just because I don't know if I trust them. But I think if there's enough resources have been eliminated and I have to choose between them and my family, then yes, then I think that sort of animalistic, I don't know, just comes out. But every time I read these fucking dystopian books of like these mega things that happen, I mean, even Walking Dead, if you read all of Walking Dead, it's people fucking each other over around a zombie apocalypse, pretty much. So
I think you just made me realize something, that all of these, dystopian, post-apocalyptic, every man for himself comic books are really just allegories for the comic book speculator market. Because there were people who would kill people for a Dork number one first print or a White Sky number one print on that Wednesday as they came out.
It's art imitating life, yes.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I just wanted to mention that really quickly because we spoke about York and we spoke about White Sky and we spoke about sort of like the speculator market and those books being up there. Are they worth $45? No, but they're definitely worth a read. So if you can get yourself a second print and stuff like that, and you wanted to read the book but just missed out on an opportunity, I can't tell you this, I'm enjoying it right now. Ripcord wasn't one of those speculative books, but it ended up being a really pleasant surprise, kind of, because I wasn't expecting much from it. And we're only into issue 2, so there hasn't even been sort of like the sister connection yet. But I'm invested in what's going on with the 2 separate stories and how those will connect when they do connect, if they do connect, kind of thing. So, and it's so funny because I'm reading the 2nd issue, and there's this one character that reminds me of fucking Sloth from the Goonies. Not by the way he looks, but by the way he's acting, kind of. And I was just like, I had to go and watch the Goonies. So I watched the Goonies. There, I said it. All right, that is all the comic reviews that we had for you. Again, really quickly, listen, we're 100% funded, so we're excited about it. If you haven't had a chance to, hop over to projectshadowbreed.com. If you want to show us some indie love, you have an opportunity to pick up issue number 1, as this is issue number 2 that we're launching. I got to get you a copy of that as soon as the hard copy comes out. Cool. You haven't read it yet. But yeah, you can definitely check that out as well. And like I said, we're going to be here every week in and week out. 1 p.m. we go live. This is our one live show. So if you ever want to, chime in, if you're on YouTube, because that's where we're following on, and you want to write something and ask a question, feel free to do so, because, if we get a chance to, we'll definitely answer those questions for you. All right, so that brings us to the end of our podcast today. So if you like what you heard, subscribe to the podcast. Better yet, bring some friends along next week. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say as well. If you want to be on a podcast, you're a creator, want to promote yourself and or project you got coming up, go to indiecreatorcomics.com, fill out the podcast form. John and I would love to have you on. Social media at Indie Creator Comics. Everywhere you look, that's where we are. Last but not least, we talked about this a lot. Support your local comic shops, because without them, we would not be able to do what we love to do, and that is read comics week in and week out. John, where do you get your comics from?
Well, I get my comics at The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And one of the great things about a small local comic shop is that the owners, sometimes get blindsided by these very hot, popular books that we were talking about, and wind up selling out of the first issues on day 1. But boy, do they hustle and do their best so that you don't have to wait long to get a replacement copy in, so that at least when next time you walk in the store, these hot books that you're looking for, they're on the shelf for you to take a look at. So one of the great things about a local comic shop is they do listen to the readers, they do listen to their customers, and so all you got to do is say, hey, I want that book, and that retailer is going to do their best to get that for you. We do it over at The Joker's Child. If you can't make it to The Joker's Child, then certainly ask the same of your local comic shop.
Absolutely. All right, kiddies, until next time, we want to thank you for joining us on the Indie Creative Comics podcast, where we are all about independent comics.